I really can't say that I dislike this episode, but with all how I feel about the league, I wish things were a little bit different.
Pokemon! 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 Pokemon!
Hello everyone, I'm Dustin, Benzel, and welcome to another Pokemon XY&Z anime discussion. Finally, I'm getting to my review after the August 1st videos that I had to record, and I still have to edit them. Well, obviously, they'll already be uploaded by the time you see this, because this will be the last video I edit, unfortunately. Hopefully, I will edit a lot soon, within the week or whatever. So let's, of course, jump right into this particular video. Of course, so what we're going to talk about is the review, as well as two episode titles that were revealed. So, of course, this was a dialogue heavy, so anything that I talk about will be entirely, should be taken with a grain of salt. I'm not saying they were like perfect translations that I've got, so I apologize if there's like something that I'm not quite understanding or correctly talking about. So let's go into a quick synopsis. So Ash healed this Pokemon, ran into Mairin and Clembot, and then of course they went through the rest of them where Sawyer was talking with them or whatever. And then of course Mairin was of course being like, hey, I've got these Galettes from Lumio City or whatever. I believe that's what it was called. Lumio City Galettes or whatever they are. I think the Japanese is like Mier or something like that, and it was Mier Galettes or whatever. And apparently Clembot, of course, dressed up like a woman, I guess, because why not? And then it went around and stood in line for like 12 hours or however long it was just to get these Galettes, and then of course they fed them to all the Pokemon, all the characters that were there, and so on and so forth. But then of course Chespin and Pancham, being the rambunctious two that they are, fight over the very last Galette, and then it starts rolling away and they chase after that. Then of course Pancham gets separated from Chespin, who's right on the Galette, and then of course right as he's about to eat the Galette, a random bird that's not a Pokemon comes flying in and takes it while saying yummy yummy. No, it was Murkrow. I don't know why I said it like that. So of course Chespin is upset, and then it ends up getting lost, runs into Mairin, who tells her about Chespin or Harry-san, her particular Chespin, and then of course they try to find Chespin's trainer. They run into Tierno, Shauna, and Trevor, who then leads them to Ash and Company and to Clement for Chespin's trainer. And that's when, of course, they learn about Mairin. They are introduced into Mairin, and they find out that Mairin is asleep and won't wake up. And then, of course, we run into Sycamore, who explains Ash Greninja. And then, of course, we also see Malva talking with Alain. We also see, later on, Ash, we saw Team Flare trying to get everything going. Lysandre, who's going to watch over the finals, Alain versus Ash or whatever. And, of course, he's like asking where Mairin is. And, of course, trainers or whatever. And then, of course, Lysandre's all like, ooh, you mean the trainer with that special Greninja. Oops. Sorry about that. That special Greninja. So then, of course, then we see Alain and Ash training at night or talking to their Pokemon. Lysandre talks with Ash, as well as Sycamore talking with Alain. And then, of course, the end of the episode is basically Alain versus Ash, the very starting of the battle. So I want to go into things. I want to talk about Chespin getting lost real quick. I think this episode is a lot better than the Axu getting lost episode. At least this has some plot relevance. At least it has Team Flare plot. I don't like the fact that the way the league is handled so far, outside of the certain moments within Ash versus Sawyer, as well as what likely is going to happen with Ash versus Alain. Those are the only things that I really like about this particular league. So I'm glad that this didn't revolve around Chespin getting lost, and it actually led into some important, relevant stuff. So then, of course, we got Mairin, who's sad, who's trying to cheer on Alain, but doesn't want to meet with him until after the finals are over with, because Mairin doesn't want to interrupt Alain, probably because of what happened in Mega Evolution Act 4, where Alain snapped at Mairin for butting in where Mairin didn't belong in a rude way. But then, of course, Mairin. So yeah, Mairin seems like a nice. I am a little disappointed that Mairin doesn't understand or doesn't remember Ash or recognize him in some fashion or another, which would have been interesting. Like, oh, I know you. You're that trainer that saved that Garchomp in the beginning of the XY&Z series, or the XY series, and then it would have been like an interesting thing. Now I want to talk about Ash Greninja and the whole concept of bond phenomenon. Um, this seems like a very lazy explanation, sweep under the rug of what Ash Greninja is, because based on the explanation, I'm having a hard time imagining that this is going to be in the games. A long time ago, there was a phenomenon that was similar to what, and some Pokemon have a great deep bond with their trainer and change as a result of this bond or whatever. And it's like, to me, that felt like the laziest explanation ever. It's like, how are we going to explain Ash Greninja? I mean, there's no game explanation for why Ash Greninja exists, because apparently Ash Greninja isn't going to be in the games apparently, or at least something similar. So, bond phenomenon. We'll call it good, and I really hate that, because it really seems like it really does look like this bond phenomenon explanation was created right at this episode. Like, oh, I'm also going to explain why Ash Greninja is the way that it is. In the past, bond phenomenon. Yep, there we go. It's like they really didn't put much thought into it, of the origins of Ash Greninja to explain what it did, and they focused more on it being special to begin with. I realize that bond phenomenon does have an advantage of not all Pokemon are susceptible to bond phenomenon, but it seems really lazy to me the way that it was portrayed, that they just magically came up with an explanation without actually putting thought into it. I want to be wrong, but that's the way that it seems right now. So, of course, I want to talk about Lysandre and Team Flare real quick, at least before Lysandre talked with Ash. And it's interesting that they're using the gym, the Prism Tower, as their base of operations, which is really interesting. Because within the actual, from what they mentioned, gym within the dialogue, they actually said gym, and it's like a basic straight up translation. Gym equals gym. So it's really nice that they mentioned the gym specifically, and it's interesting that they chose Lumio City or whatever. So I want to talk about Sawyer. I neglected to mention Sawyer. I may have mentioned his name once or twice or whatever, but I neglected to talk about the most important aspect of Sawyer, and that was, of course, him crying. And the thing was that Sawyer enjoyed everything that he got, but he wanted to battle more and further, and that's why he was upset, at least based on the translations. He didn't want to stop battling, and he stopped battling because he lost, and he was like really upset or whatever. So yeah, but then he used that to get stronger and use it to be a better trainer, which was interesting or whatever. So while I am disappointed that this tournament is just a Lon Sawyer battle tournament based on the way it's presented, I am kind of okay and like that Sawyer is still getting some stuff so that it won't be as jarring if he just suddenly leaves. And of course, Sawyer will be watching the battle with Ash versus Alain, which is interesting. So then, of course, let's talk about Alain and Malva. So Malva was like, you reached the finals, you're gathering Mega Evolution data, you're almost there of getting all the Mega Evolution data or whatever. So what's Alain going to do when, of course, he saves Chespin? And Alain's like, that's none of your business. So, and of course, Alain doesn't trust Malva. which is kind of strange when you really think about it, because Alain trusts Lysandre and Team Flare for the most part, and Malva seems to have a relation to that. Having Alain being suspicious of Malva makes no sense. It's like, I don't know if I could think of any examples. It, I mean, they're part of the same team, basically, and Alain is suspicious of Malva's purpose or whatever. It's like Alain thinks Malva is an evil villain, but Alain doesn't think that with Team Flare and Lysandre. That's why that threw me off. I don't know if that was like a poor translation or not, but that's still very weird that Alain would feel that way with Malva, especially given her relation to Lysandre or whatever. Or maybe Alain knows that Malva threw in that Mega Evolution fight and is bitter that Malva may have other intentions or whatever. So then, of course, we move on to Alain and Sycamore, of course, which is where Sycamore finally figures out what's wrong with Alain, and that's because he's working with Lysandre, and that Sycamore gave Alain his blessing and saying that he can do whatever he needs to do, and that would be fine with him. And then, of course, we talk about Ash and Lysandre, which is really cool. I like how, even though we didn't see it, that suddenly Lysandre is interested in Ash, and particularly Greninja, and within the translations I saw, he was interested in the bonds with humans and trainers. Humans and trainers, no Pokemon at all. Pokemon don't exist in this particular moment. Pokemon and their trainer, the bonds between them, Mega Evolution, and interested in what Ash Greninja is capable of. And of course, Lysandre, after the League, wants Ash to talk about him in regards to Ash Greninja. So let's move on to another one. And so, that's pretty much, like I said, I have no problem with this particular episode. It was okay, it was decent or whatever. A lot better than Axu getting lost, which served no purpose whatsoever, outside of to say, forget you, Scraggy, you don't get to have a battle, and to make sure that each Pokemon only got one battle in Unova, blah, 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 not important. So at least there was some relevance here, even though, like I said, I really didn't like this overall in regards to the League, because, the League has not been handled very properly outside of Sawyer and Alain, so yeah, that's a little disappointed. So of course, that's all I wanted to say in regards to the episode. Next episode, of course, will be Ash versus Alain beginning, and we've pretty much got the full team of Alain confirmed. Alain has, okay, so Charizard, Metagross, Tyranitar, Weavile, Unpheasant, male version, as well as B-Sharp. Now, a lot of people are like, oh no, Alain has an Unpheasant, that's horrifying. I really don't know what people want, I don't know why people want Alain with super strong Pokemon that are like pseudo-legendaries or just 540 base stat total Pokemon or whatever, so I really have no problem with Alain having Unpheasant. I mean, it is a little awkward, but I otherwise really don't have a problem with it. So I guess it's just whatever, and that's pretty much all I wanted to say right now. I will instead talk about it in their particular reviews on how I feel or whatever, so I don't know if I showed you any images there, but anyway, let's move on to the new titles, and that'll be the end of this particular video. So there's one thing that I want to address in regards to a title that we already are aware of, and that, of course, is August 25th. XY&Z episode 39. And that, of course, is Team Flare attacks the Zygarde at Prison Tower. Lumio City falls into shambles due to the attack of mysterious plants that suddenly appeared, which is Team Flare's weapons. Ash and the others head to Prison Tower to try to finding out the truth behind this incident, but are met by a surprise attack from Team Flare, and Ash ends up captured. And then Lysandre, Alain's boss and representative of Lysandre Labs, finally unleashes his ambition on the entire world. I think that's interesting, and the reason why I bring this up is, well, it wasn't in the other new titles or whatever, but I think it's funny that Ash specifically ends up getting captured, because, you know, Ash has Ash Greninja, so Ash will probably be able to do a lot. And who knows, maybe Ash won the Kalos League, and that's why he ends up getting captured. So it's interesting that that's the case. So anyway, let's move on to the new titles. XY&Z episode 40, which will air on September 1st. The shocking Zygarde versus Zygarde, the breaking world. Clement and the others decide to split into several groups in order to stop Team Flare's plans. Bonnie follows Squishy as it confronts Z2, which has to transform into its 50% form. But then the evil clutches of Team Flare strike, and just like Z2, Squishy also ended up getting controlled by Team Flare. It looks like they're preparing for Bonnie to have some role within this particular Team Flare conclusion. So September 8th, September 8th, August of whatever. No, September 8th, XY&Z episode 41. Attack on Lumiose Gym, the Citroid Forever. As he attempts to retake the Lumiose Gym, Clement challenges Team Flare's scientist Rosic to battle, staking their pride as scientists. So just in order, Team Flare attacks the Zygarde at the Prism Tower, has Houndour as the data broadcast. Zygarde versus Zygarde, the Breaking World, has Zygarde 50% as the data broadcast. And of course, the Lumiose, the Citroid Forever, has Malamar as the data broadcast Pokemon. So this is very interesting, or whatever it is. So yeah, I really enjoy this. I'm looking forward to Team Flare. I'm disappointed that they decided to focus more on Team Flare than anything else, but it is whatever it is. So I think that's all I have to say right now in regards to that. In another video, I suggested maybe Pokemon Fan will come out this month, so I guess we'll just have to see if that's the particular case, and maybe they'll reveal more in regards to Team Flare. So anyway, thank you for watching. I'm Dustin Benzel, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye.